In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, 3 brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Bryan Frye, Chad Robinson, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Hello, all your lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I am pumped today because we've got 2 of my best friends and 2 of your hosts joining me. I'm Russell Guest, your host, and joining me is Bryan Frye from Spokane, Washington. Bryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good evening, everybody.
And joining us is who?
Our other host, Chad Robinson.
I'm back from probation. I got bleeped once.
And I ain't never going back.
It's funny, like, if you don't know Chad, like, in real life, he's the last person you would think that would need a bleep. And I don't remember what episode it was. It was so far
It was
back.
Highlander.
Highlander.
It was a quote, too. It was a movie quote. I got bleeped, and then I got banned.
It was a direct quote. You're right. I normally let that go, but then I got to it in the editing room, and I was like, oh, man, I don't know. I can't let that one go.
Chad, what was the quote?
I want to come back in the next 2 months.
Go back and check Highlander out if you haven't heard it. So
I was really hoping you'd just go for it.
Yeah, I know. So let's break the ice a little bit here. It's been a while since the 3 of us have been on together. So what is the last movie you saw, Bryan?
I watched Netflix's The Terminal, starring Margot Robbie, Seth Meyer, and Simon Pegg.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought. Wait, was Margot Robbie in The Terminal?
Yes. Not the Tom Hanks movie.
That's exactly where my mind was going. I was like, that's Catherine Zeta-Jones and Tom Hanks. I mean, okay.
For clarity's sake, we'll just call it Terminal.
Okay.
It may just be Terminal, but yeah, it was a really fun movie. I spent a huge chunk of it trying to figure out who one of these characters was because they look so familiar. And lo and behold, it turns out he is Jeremy Irons' son.
Not Tom Hanks.
Once I figured it out, I was like, oh my God. Makes so much more sense now.
Which Terminal's better? That one or the Tom Hanks one?
I would rather watch the Margot Robbie one again. But as far as film goes, the Tom Hanks one is a better film.
Okay. And Chad, what about you? What's the last movie you saw?
I'm cooped up, so I thought the movie Cabin Fever would be a good idea.
Ooh.
I had no real context other than the title. Yeah, that was a mistake.
I love the end of that movie, though. It's the best twist. The end of that movie is the best twist.
My most recent movie, and I'm somebody who has to take movies in sequential order, so I'm way behind other people. So I'm going through the Star Trek movies very slowly. It'll probably take me years. But anyway, I watched Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. So I'm now prepared to go on to Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Oh,
Ooh.
You're in for a bad time.
Oh, dude, see, that's one of my closet favorite Star Trek movies. Like, yeah. I totally get why people hate it, but it's so cheesy and 90s, and I liked it.
Okay, well I'm a little bit eager to go forward then with conflicting reviews from you guys. So today's movie is going to feature rural America, and I wanted to ask you guys, what is your favorite rural America movie? Chad?
I think the nicest one I could come up with would be A River Runs Through It. There are a lot of good horror movies too, but I really enjoyed A River Runs Through It.
Okay. And what about you, Bryan?
I'm kind of doing this off the cuff, so I probably, given more time, could think of something I've liked better, but I'm going to go with Harrison Ford's Witness.
Oh, love that movie. That's a great one. Yeah. I'm going to go with October Sky.
Rocket
Solid.
Boys, yeah.
Yep, solid.
Yep. Hits me in my West Virginia heart.
Yeah, no, that's a good one too. And just so everybody knows, Deliverance was filmed in Georgia, so I know what you all are thinking.
Yeah. I went for a positive movie, not a negative movie. So,
you could have gone with Deer Hunter.
Yeah, Wrong Turn is not that bad. I will defend it. The rest of them, they get worse.
Now, what is your favorite drug movie? Because drugs are in this movie today as well. So, Brian, do you want to take you this one?
All right, I'm going to go with the movie Go. If you've never seen the movie Go, it is awesome. It is full of ecstasy and talking cats, and I could not possibly recommend it more.
Okay, and what about you, Chad? What is your favorite drug movie?
Well, this is going to get a groan from you, Russell, but it's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
That's a good one too. Yeah, that's good.
I'm in the minority on that one. I know I am. There's a lot of people out there who love that movie, not me. But
if you want a movie that encompasses the most drugs, I think that definitely wins.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
like they have all the drugs in that movie.
All of the drugs. So if you can't tell, I don't tend to like drug movies. So my favorite drug movie is 21 Jump Street.
It's a good choice, though.
Yeah,
could have gone Half Baked.
Half Baked's a strong. Yeah, that's a good runner-up. Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of realm that I want to be in. You know, I mean, so a drug movie for me is more Cheech and Chong and less Blow with Johnny Depp.
I'm right there with you. Not a fan of Train Spotting. Not a fan of Blow.
But anyway, today, what movie is it we're gonna do, Brian?
We are gonna do Winter's Bone, starring Jennifer Lawrence.
That's right. Winter's Bone comes out in 2010. It is made for a small budget of $2 million. It grosses $6.5 million domestic, so it certainly made its money back and then some. It places in the box office that you're at 160, so that's not real high. Coming in behind It's a Funny Kind of Story, and coming ahead of Under the Sea 3D. The number one movie that year was Avatar, and it made a lot more money than that. IMDb gives this movie a 7.2. Winter's Bone gets a 94% fresh rating from the critics of Rotten Tomatoes. The audience, a little bit behind, gives it a 76%. Now, this is a Sundance movie, so it came up through the film festival scene, and it wins at Sundance. It's a winner. It has the grand prize jury for Best Dramatic Film and Best Screenplay Award for the 2010 Sundance Film Festival. It also comes away with 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. It lost to King's Speech. It comes away with the Best Actress for Jennifer Lawrence nomination, but she lost to Natalie Portman in Black Swan. Not sure I agree with that, having seen this movie now. Best Supporting Actor, John Hawkes. He lost to Christian Bale in The Fighter. I think that was okay on that one. And the Best Adapted Screenplay was nominated. It didn't win any of these, and it also came away with 4 Golden Globe nominations as well. And again, Jennifer Lawrence lost to Natalie Portman in that one. So, Chad, you're ready to come back, I'm sure, and tell me that Natalie Portman deserved that.
Absolutely. It was a much more demanding role.
Yeah, he's a fan.
Yeah, all right. So let me just play devil's advocate for a second there. I totally understand why you're saying Natalie Portman for Black Swan is a much more demanding role. But if you want to go to age versus actual skill to that point, I feel like there's got to be a bell curve here for Jennifer Lawrence being 19 years old and basically dropping this bombshell on your doorstep versus Natalie Portman, who's been in the biz for as long as she has, bringing a great performance. I mean, I just feel like there's got to be a bell curve here.
And this was the out of nowhere movie too, because this is the lowest grossing film nominated for a Best Picture since 1983's The Dresser. And so people didn't see this one coming. It was like a swerve in the road. So
she's got time. I mean, Natalie Portman's the better actress and has been a consistently great actress even in Leon the Professional. So Jennifer Lawrence has time to get one.
I get it.
Maybe she'll get one for X-Men.
Oh, she was the worst part of that.
My gripe on that mode of thinking, though, is the same thing that kept George Lucas out of the Academy.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you're right.
So as soon as you start saying, oh, they've got chance, then, maybe they don't. You don't know.
I feel like they knew something about George Lucas that we didn't at the time. And then he made episode 1 and he proved them right.
I don't know.
That's fine, but he still was I don't want to super argue this or anything.
How long did it take to DiCaprio to get his award? I mean, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. And that guy was not phoning in. He didn't do Let's Go Fishing. DiCaprio kept plowing in these huge performances and he kept getting snubbed. When he finally won, all the memes and everything that came out of that and his good humor from finally getting one, kudos for him. But I don't like the method of thinking, oh, well, this was great, but she's young, she's got time.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil too much, but she was the worst part of this movie for me.
Oh, well.
Oh,
whoa. Table that hot take.
Oh.
Hot take alert. Hot take alert. Boiling hot take. I'm scalded. Let's get into this a little bit, though. Bryan, had you seen this movie before? What was it like coming back to it now? Tell us what your feelings were on this.
So this is one of those movies that would typically, like, given the genre and what it's about and everything, would fall under those, wow, this was a great movie that I'll never watch again. I felt completely the opposite when I watched this the first time. I was completely blown away by it. I was actually really apprehensive about watching it at all the first time because I kind of knew what I was getting into. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Really love this movie. I bought it immediately afterward. And when you picked it as for this, I was like, yes.
And it's holding up well for you then?
Oh, of course.
Awesome.
I think you could watch this movie in 30 years and everything would still be relevant in it.
Yeah, probably. Now, Chad, I'm detecting that you may feel differently.
I had never seen this movie before. I had no context for what it was about. I didn't read anything up front, which I think is making Russell twitch. Did no homework up front, so I didn't even know what kind of movie it was even halfway through. I'm like, where is this going? What is the point? That having been said, especially where I grew up and where I had family, we say Charleston, my family's from Elk River and from the Spencer areas and a lot of Roane County. So I've seen a lot of what's presented in Missouri here. So it was really well casted. It was well done, and I think it'll hold up well. Unfortunately, rural America, like you said, lags behind. It'll look like this for a long time. That being said, yeah, it was a well done movie.
Okay. So you're a little more positive than I was detecting. So that's good to know. I had a hard time deciding how this movie affected me, particularly the first time through. Probably because we have a baby and this movie was chopped up into 5 segments my first time through. So it went way better the second time around. And I want to really praise a lot of the detailed aspects of this one. And it was interesting watching this one. Mary was watching it with me and she did not like this. And so I came away with a positive experience that she didn't. We rarely have this kind of fork in the road like this. So it was interesting here. It divided the house on this one. So, but I did like it, and I thought that this movie was going to be one thing more than it was, and I got something a little bit different, and I was still very pleased. But I'd been wanting to see this movie since the Oscar nomination came out years ago. I saw most of the other movies that were nominated that Oscars year, and it's just kind of been one of those ones that's been lingering around then and there, and I've had good recommendations to see it. And I purchased this one for the low cost of $3.
Well worth it.
Very nice.
Yeah. Now, we're going to spoil Winter's Bones. If you haven't seen it, watch out. We'll be back after these messages.
This is William Jefferson Clinton, your 42nd President of the United States of America, but you can call me Bill. After my presidency, I have enjoyed playing more jazz saxophone, eating Big Macs, traveling more, and watching movies with my special lady. Occasionally, I enjoy a movie with Hillary, too. Being a fan of movies, I found the Retro Movie Roundtable podcast in America. I gotta say, I like this podcast. Join me and go into iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Retro Movie Roundtable, give them a 5-star review, comment on what you'd like to hear from the show. Personally, I love the show as it is, but I'd like to hear them choose some more steamy titles, like Basic Instinct, Eyes Wide Shut, Striptease, Boogie Nights, or Showgirls. America, those are my kind of movies. Give the Retro Movie Roundtable a like on Facebook. Email John and Russell at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Tell them Bill sent you. Goodbye for now, America.
Okay, we're back, and this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Now, Chad, for those who haven't seen Winter's Bone since 2010, do you want to refresh people's memory?
I would love to. So Jennifer Lawrence is playing Ree Dolly, a teenage girl in rural Missouri living with her ailing mother and 2 younger siblings. Her meth-cooking daddy goes missing. She sets out on a mission to discover what has happened to him. She proceeds to go door to door for about 45 minutes of the film, asking questions to a bunch of distant relatives, You can insert any joke you like here. Didn't happen in West Virginia. These relatives grow increasingly hostile to her quest. She's aided along the way by her meth-addicted uncle, Teardrop. Eventually, the bondsman comes looking for Jessup, Rhee's father, because he'd put the house up as bail. He informs Rhee that if Jessup isn't found to be dead, they'll lose the house in a week. Rhee visits the local crime boss, and the women of the family proceed to beat her up, but are interrupted by her uncle Teardrop. A few nights later, the same women show up at Rhee's house and agree to take her to her father's bones, which sounds like a totally trustworthy proposition. Rhee goes along with them and chainsaws her father's hands off after pulling his submerged body from a bog. Then she delivers the hands to the sheriff, not revealing the truth about how she obtained them, and sits on her porch as her youngest sister plays the banjo. No, really, that's how it ends.
I first of all want to say that is a great, surprisingly simple way of saying, how did you get these hands? Because I was sitting there like, I was sitting there because like, what are you gonna say? How did you get these? And she's like, someone threw them up on the porch. I was like, so simple, brilliant.
That is a line that only works in rural America.
It's so believable too.
Or possibly inner city Chicago.
That's true, Candyman. So this is about desperation to hold your world together. It's a family trying to survive, held together by a daughter or an eldest daughter who's, got a dysfunctional mother and, basically what was a really bad father who's now gone missing. And it's really compelling to see how she has to do that. And in order to hold her family together, she has to confront the darkness, and her father was consumed by that same darkness, and she has to enter that world. As a 17-year-old girl, you're very afraid for her as she's doing this. And so it was a movie that was a testament of courage, and you could kind of feel that. I was afraid for her as she was going through there. What was your feeling as you were going through this movie on the plot, Brian?
Sorry, I have a quick question. Was Teardrop using meth that whole time? Because I thought it was cocaine. Now, this might just show my ignorance of various forms of meth, but I thought you smoked meth, and he kept snorting something, and it looked like cocaine. So I was just curious.
I assumed it was meth, but I'm also not really the best meth user to ask questions to, so I don't know.
It was meth.
Okay. I know he said, like, have you gotten a taste for it yet? And I was like, okay, well, I get it, but I just didn't know meth was like a snortable as well as it's various.
As well as burnable, yeah.
I always thought it was like a crack pipe thing.
Yep. That's why you come to Retro Movie Roundtable, learning various ways of ingesting meth.
I didn't do any research on meth before this podcast.
I had enough working at IHOP.
You had enough meth working at my IHOP?
Oh, our general manager was a huge tweaker. She always told me how much stuff she could get done on meth when she doesn't sleep for several days. God,
I always wondered why those pancakes were so irresistible.
I want to keep this in so bad, but we got to steer back on. So, Brian, how did you take the story of Winter's Bone?
I mean, completely believable. I think this is one of the things that makes movies like this so compelling, because, like Chad said, we grew up around a lot of this, and not necessarily a lot of like hardcore meth shops and everything, but it's ever present. And you take 2 steps out of Charleston and you're in this. So I thought this was a great movie. In fact, I think it almost took my third watch, not for the podcast, but just watching it on my own, before I caught a couple of the Missouri references. It was this was almost a movable place for me.
Yeah, I have several friends from Missouri, and I'm familiar with Midwest accents. And I was like, why are they going with this accent for Missouri? But apparently...
Okay. I'm glad that was a stipulation.
I had to look it up, but apparently people from Missouri say in the Ozark area, this is what they sound like. It's like, this is not what the Midwest sounds like. That's not what my friends sound like.
They did mention that they were close to the Arkansas border.
Yeah, they did.
So, yeah, it's not what I think of when I think of Missouri. Obviously, I'm probably thinking of St. Louis, but I mean, I like Brian. This felt like Kentucky or West Virginia or something like that to me just as easily. So, it's landscape as well.
The unfortunate fact is you can find areas like this probably in every state now, just in terms of how easy it is to make, sell, and procure meth. So one thing I've learned about living in several different states is there's really not a huge swing of difference between rural anywhere.
That's a great point.
And that's not a knock. And I'm not saying all rural areas are like this. I'm just saying that all states have these areas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. But to what you're saying, there's a realism that is quite striking. And that's what Mary didn't like about it. As my wife was watching this, she just said, coming from West Virginia, this is a world that was never too far away. And this is not something, I wanted to stay away from this. And, this forces you to confront that world. It forces you to live in that world. And it was hard for her to do that. And that strong visceral reaction that she had, and that shows you how well made the film is, because that's where they wanted to take you.
Yep, agreed.
But Rhee's character is just so compelling to me. So now, Chad, you mentioned maybe a casting comment, but I mean, you said you didn't like Jennifer Lawrence as much. Is this directed at Rhee, the character? Because I love this character, Rhee, because she just, if you had to say for Rhee, like, it's like the Nike slogan of, like, just do it. Like, she is all tuned on. Like, I noticed that in Star Trek, even, like, the third movie, Star Trek Beyond, Jayla is the character that they based on her, because they liked her strong survivalistic way of doing things, and then her level head going through it. So is it the character Rhee for you, or is it Jennifer Lawrence?
No, I don't have a problem with the character. I mean, it's where the title comes from, that desperation, the like a dog digging for a winter's bone, just that determination and desperation. But yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, and this could have come up in the casting section, but she was turned away for being too pretty. Now, I'm not someone that goes nuts over Jennifer Lawrence, but I kind of agree. She looks too clean, too done up. Even when she tried, she was the one person that stuck out to me of, you don't belong here. The rest of the people were they nailed it.
Well, in fairness, she doesn't have a taste for meth yet. She said as much. So if everybody else is on meth, you're by default the best looking person in town.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
have a winner. Last on meth.
Yeah, just even her facial features. And it's funny, she's from Kentucky, but her facial features didn't fit in. Like, some of these people are just, they had that look. Teardrop. I've met teardrops in my life. I've met the Mirabs. I've met her friend. All of these people are just like, that's what these rural country folk look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she didn't. I've never seen anyone that looks like Jennifer Lawrence.
Huh. Interesting. I'm not sure I'm with you, but that's good to know. That's where you're coming from. So it's more of an aesthetic. She just didn't fit it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
She was a distraction.
Wow. Maybe some of that's because you know who Jennifer Lawrence is now, and whereas had you taken this in 2010, she was commodity unknown.
I think I'd still say which of these is not like the other.
Really?
Just to toss it out there, I saw this movie as part of my mom every year does a pool to who can guess what will win what Oscar. And back when she used to do that, I made it a point to try to see as many Oscar nominees as possible. That's how I saw this the first time. I actually think it's a big disservice to this movie that it didn't win more things. But this was definitely my first Jennifer Lawrence movie. And I didn't have any of those qualms when I saw it. Like, that thought never occurred to me watching this the first time.
I might say, into what Bryan was saying, it's never too soon to give an award to somebody, because I'd say this is the best performance I've seen her in. I haven't seen her full catalog, but for me, for my money, this is her best.
And I really hadn't seen anybody in this movie except for John Hawkes. So the fact that this movie got the prominence, and I understand it's a Sundance indie type of film, but the fact that they put this thing together with a guy who literally has never been nominated for anything ever, I had seen him in Deadwood. And that's why I love him so much. And to have this sort of performance from him and then this relative unknown blew me away. And then when she got cast for Hunger Games, I'm like, yeah, that is the girl you're looking for. That is exactly the girl you're looking for Hunger Games.
And then she made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I find myself asking is, I went in kind of expecting more of a thriller because a lot of the, I guess, literature and praise is that it's thrilling. And it is suspenseful, but I do find myself asking, how would you define this as a genre? Because it could be a drama, a mystery, a thriller, a tragedy. I mean, there's even elements of this that are fitting within the horror realm. So how would you explain what this movie is genre-wise?
I think that if I had to pick one, I think drama is definitely going to be fairly cemented as my pick. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this movie is the slow burn, the less is more aspects of it, where you can see without dialogue so many of the things that she does to take care of the kids, all of the old scrapbook scenes and stuff like that where they're reminiscing over times past. Her relative ease at letting her father go because, if your family's up to no good, you know what you're into. And that mentality of we all know where this life leads us. And for you to get that at such a young age and then still take care of ones younger than you and not look forward, just look at the present. There's a lot to that, man. That's what Obi-Wan Kenobi wanted Luke Skywalker doing.
Yeah.
So, she's very present, and I really appreciated how in this movie, this movie makes me appreciate what I have so much because, she cares for her animals even when, there's not a lot to go around for the people. And there's so many parts of this movie that I really appreciate and makes me appreciate the things around me.
Absolutely.
I think it does a huge disservice for this movie to be labeled as a mystery. Because, like I said, when I was watching it, I didn't know what this was. And probably about 40 minutes in, I looked up just to see where this was going as far as what genre this was. And it labeled it as mystery. I think that's a huge mistake because I think one of the more disappointing parts of this movie is the mystery. Drama is where I would go as well, Frye.
I kind of agree. And the mystery, I went in craving mystery, whodunit kind of thing, and we didn't have that. And the second time through, I was prepared to let that go, and I think that's why I enjoyed it more. But the thrill is there. It does keep you on the edge of your seat without having a lot of big action moments. So, I mean, there, like I said, there's this realistic horror. I don't mean in terms of monster horror, but I mean, there's this horrific side of this world that is scary, and that's the part that was unsettling to Mary. And I did find myself sitting there saying, it doesn't put you in a good spot, when you watch this. And so there is an aspect of this that is scary. This is not a world you want to live in. I mean, this is not a nice place for women, especially. Everybody seems to be an angry male who is extremely aggressive. Everybody at all ages, and they're just, people are mean. There's a distaste towards and distrust towards people who aren't within the clique. It's almost like a gang of the drug dealers, and drugs are so pervasive. There's a distrust and a distaste for the police and the government and everything around. So there's just not a lot of love. I mean, the values of, loving your neighbor and your community and, helping each other, they're gone. This is not this world. And obviously, I think the drugs have infected and dominated that world.
So maybe one thing that kind of helped me along with this, and I honestly don't remember when this show started, so it could have been something I saw after the fact. But if you ever watched the show Justified with Timothy Olyphant, I'm not going to compare it to this movie because this movie was an Oscar nominee and Justified was just a good TV show. But you definitely get that rural, it's a different sense of family. And I think that if you watched a couple of the first 3 seasons of that, you would understand this movie better.
Interesting. One thing that also frustrated me was Ree had, like, the only way out of this town with the means that they have is to join the military. And she wanted to do that. That was her plan. And because of her father failed her, she had to give that up and take care of the children, and thus condemning her to stay in this world. That recruiter scene in particular really hit me hard when he's like, "Are you joining for the right reason? Doesn't sound like you can do this." That scene was like, because I was sitting there the whole time thinking, is like, I'm not much of the whole, like, I'm not well suited to be in the military. I don't necessarily do the chain of command very well and stuff like that. But I mean, on the other hand, I'm sitting there going like, man, the military is looking really good right now. And to have that fall away from her and to have that carpet taken away from her, I was sitting there going like, oh no, that's like, you're stuck.
That was probably one of the least believable scenes in this movie. An army recruiter was just like, "Are you sure you want to join? Are these the right reasons?" Not
so he's a real soldier who's really an army recruiter, and he treated that entire scene like he was talking to a real recruitee.
Yeah, it felt genuine to me. I'm with Frye on that one.
Like, that's exactly what he would have said to someone asking the questions that she asked.
That is not the reputation they tend to have.
I don't know. I don't think they want you to join and then like leave and go jettison. I mean, they want you to feel a sense of duty to the country and to do something bigger and to protect the people. And they don't want you to just to sign up for $40,000.
So I had this thought this time watching it. I was like, you know what? I want her to join the military. I want her to come back to town like some just pure on badass and have the rundown kind of moment. She becomes sheriff with a frickin', sawed off 2x4 and just goes to town on everybody who, killed her dad.
So
Hot Fuzz.
Punisher.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna go Hot Fuzz style, but yeah, sure.
Well, it wasn't what was the one with The Rock where he was in the military and he comes home and becomes sheriff with the baseball bat 2x4? Wasn't that the rundown?
That's the rundown.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I wanted that. Only with Jennifer Lawrence.
That scene especially hit me because it was like, that's your only ticket out, and it was pulled away from her. So, Bryan, do you want to give us a cast rundown?
So we have Jennifer Lawrence as Ree Dolly. We have John Hawkes as Teardrop Dolly, who names their kid that. I always thought it was like a prison reference, but he doesn't have that tattoo.
I'm pretty sure it's a reference to the tattoo on his eye. Yeah, that's a nickname.
Did he have the tattoo?
Yeah,
I feel like I
yeah.
didn't see that.
Yeah, he had like a
Okay.
little X on the side of his eye, which made him more scary.
Gotcha. Dale Dickey as Merib.
That's a lady.
Yep. Garret Dillahunt as Sheriff Baskin. Lauren Sweetser as Gail. Shelley Waggener as Sonia. Kevin Breznahan as Little Arthur. Ashlee Thompson as Ashlee Dolly. Tate Taylor as Mike Satterfield. He's the bondsman. And Sheryl Lee as April. Oh, and Cody Shiloh Brown as Floyd.
So this cast is, to me, very genuine and feels very realistic. I mean, there's a lot of characters in this who are actual locals who are in here. For instance, Ree Dolly's sister, what was the name of the little sister?
Ashlee.
Yeah.
Ashlee.
Ashlee is a local, and the house that they are actually filming in was the house where she lived. Obviously, they put the different actors in there for her parents and siblings and stuff like that, but there is a strong effort to capture the location that they're in, and that, to me, shows through to the point of what you were getting at earlier, Chad. You were pulled out of it by Jennifer Lawrence. I just thought everything here just felt incredibly, incredibly realistic.
Well, that was actually the Ashlee Thompson who plays Ashlee Dolly. That was her house. That was her real house. So that was kind of a neat touch.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. We were dealing with a missing person, and Sheryl Lee plays Jessup's mistress. She's kind of the woman that Ree's dad has gone off with throughout time, and so she connects to her and talks to her. Sheryl Lee played a missing person in Twin Peaks. She's Laura Palmer. So kind of a fun connection there.
Love Twin Peaks. I really like what they did with the cast of this movie. The fact that you have two actors who get nominated for Academy Awards with no real background for it, and hasn't happened since. So I feel like it goes to show that if you have the right situation and the right movie, there are so many actors out there that will surprise you with a very deep performance that may just have not had that opportunity yet.
Yeah.
No, I agree there. And, to her credit, I mentioned earlier, she was turned down for being too pretty by the casting directors. Jennifer Lawrence was really determined to get this part. She flew to New York overnight, walked 13 blocks in sleet, and auditioned with a runny nose, and she hadn't washed her hair in a week. So she kind of uglied herself up to go after this part. So good on her.
I think it's a realism aspect that, they're looking for someone who can't take genuine care of themselves, at least in terms of what we consider care. And because I think if you asked Ree, do you take care of those children? She'd be like, well, hell yes, I do. And I'll shoot anybody who says otherwise.
Yeah.
It may not be our idea of hygiene or whatnot, but according to her, they're happy, healthy, and I'll shoot you.
She was pretty defensive when the notion that, the neighbors, which in fairness, the woman actually seems pretty decent for the town they're in. But I mean, the guy who she's married to, who she's attached to, and he's like, we'll take your son, but not your daughter. Or I mean, you'll take your brother, but obviously she has very few choices, but she defended, she's like hell you will.
Yeah.
So to your point, Brian, she absolutely did have that. She was disgusted. And in fairness, he did just threaten to beat her younger brother no more than 60 minutes ago, probably.
Good to have balls, kid. Make sure they don't get you hurt.
Well, that character in the book, there had been, I believe it was rape of Ree, so there was a history.
No, not that character. That's Little Arthur. Little Arthur is the character with the ferret in the house.
Yes.
And so
that ferret really bothered me. That enclosure was not big enough.
That's what bothered you?
That's what bothered you?
Yes, there were a lot of other...
Upon watching this
things.
movie, the one thing that really got me was the ferret enclosure was not big enough.
I became uncomfortable when I saw that the enclosure was not sized properly for the animal.
My God, the size of that ferret enclosure is just not proper.
He was cleaning his gun, everything else, but I was just distracted by the ferret. I was like, please get him a proper place to play.
You've been gone too long, Chad. The hot takes are coming back. I like it.
For me, I was brokenhearted. The horse hadn't eaten in 4 days, and that they're, feeding the dogs possibly spoiled leftovers, but still taking in more strays, and that all the children love the dogs and everything. But nope, for Chad, it's the ferret in his small enclosure.
Can we at least get the ferret some toys or something?
Okay.
Chad, can that be your look for this? Look at this ferret enclosure right here. Just indignant. This is too small.
You need at least a 13-gallon enclosure for a ferret. I mean...
Man, the PETA listeners are proud of you, man.
I didn't see what the enclosure was in Starship Troopers, but did Neil Patrick Harris have a proper ferret enclosure for his ferret in Starship Troopers?
It was better.
So, to your point, though, Chad, this movie is made from a novel, a 2006 novel by Daniel Woodrell, and there's a lot of elements that had to be cut down from this. And as as we transition talking to the director, Debbie Granik, director, she did a great job here. She was saying that the role of a director is to try and live up to the novel because it's a hard thing to do. And so, I mean, you're always going to have to remove stuff from it. There was this authenticity that she said was the most important part to bring to it. But there's elements of the book that didn't make it into this. And to what you said, I mean, there's this angst between Ree and Little Arthur, but in the book, you're right. When Ree's younger, at an undisclosed age, she's fed hallucinogenic mushrooms and then raped by Little Arthur. So they take that out of the film. This world is raw enough and mean enough and cruel enough. I'm actually okay that we didn't know that detail.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. But Debra Granik on this one, for me, I mean, one word, real. Just, I probably have said it a bunch of times. Say it 3 times. Real, real, real. I mean, she did an amazing job as a director. She nailed this world. And more than any movie I think we've covered on this, it feels realistic.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now, Bryan, what do you think about Debra Granik as a director here? I hadn't seen any of her movies other than this, but I mean, here I was really impressed.
I couldn't name another one she's done. I'm not saying that she hasn't done anything I've ever heard of, but I walked into this movie with no idea about really anything. I mean, how many times do you buy or see a movie where you're like, well, I know little to nothing about this in terms of cast and whatnot. I kind of knew a little bit about the plot, but I didn't really know anything about anybody involved. And I think that may be, like, when you have that basis of surprise on impact, on what the movie did for you in terms of emotional response and whatnot, I feel like that just made this almost mythical. Like, how many movies can you remember seeing with nobody in it, nobody you've heard of, and a director that you can't, tag other things to, and then it just blows you away because you're like, wow, this should have been nominated. Yep, that should have won Sundance, and this absolutely should win all these things over here too. So I just, it's so seldom that you can hit a home run as a minor league team in the pros, I guess is the metaphor I'd use here.
Yeah. Now, Chad, how about you and the director?
Yeah, she's great at discovering talent. She discovered the lady who went on to star in the Conjuring movies. I can't remember her name right now, but it was the movie that preceded this one. I like you, have seen none of her other works. I'd be interested in seeing them now. She seems, from what I was reading about her, it was a focus on using locals. And that's so important, getting people that understand the terrain and not setting up a shack and calling it the Charleston Marriott.
Oh, God. Mothman prophecy.
We will continue to call you out until you George Lucas that cut.
every chance I get to call out that horrible, horrible travesty of a shot, I'm like, really?
But yeah, I mean, Russell, your word real is the best word to describe it. Just using what you've got, using the people that you've got, and getting them to act in a manner that's normal for them, or at least something that they would know about, and using them as your experts. That's so important.
Yep. And they obviously set up shop and they filmed it on location, so she did an amazing job of actually going to the right place. But I mean, the actors were there in the community, and she talked about how the people of the town, I could easily see someone not being welcoming to this particular production being made in my town. But she mentioned that there was an influential person in town, kind of a well-regarded man there who had read the book, understood it, and had communicated with the filmmakers ahead of time. And it was through him and through gradual, delicate asking that they were able to attain this closeness that they had with this area in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri when they were shooting this. And again, I want to credit her because there's a lot of places who would say, no, I don't want this shot here. It might be written for here, but I don't want it here. And the authenticity really shone through here. And I was sad that she didn't get a director nomination out of this one, because I think a lot of the impressive parts of this are, again, she found the right place. She talked about it as you, again, have to bring the vision to the novel. The place is the hardest and most important part to do. And then once you're there, the next hardest thing is to populate it properly. And so she just had an amazing attention for detail, both through props, actors, and environment. I mean, cinematography-wise, this isn't a pretty movie, but in a way, it's kind of appropriate for where it is.
Yeah, as far as that goes, it's a lot of close-up shots, and I thought they deliberately blurred the black background a lot, just to kind of add to the haze and the grit and the grime of the world.
So I've got 2 things on this. One, I completely agree with you, Russ. She definitely at least deserved a nod for this movie. But my second piece on this is I think that if you approach it with respect, saying, I am trying to tell this story and it matches this location, that you will find that a lot of people who live and struggle through the hardships that she portrayed in this would not only be welcoming of the opportunity to do this, but also unapologetic for how they live.
And I think that's kind of how it happened, but to foster that relationship between this town and the production of a Hollywood people coming in there is difficult.
Oh, no, super difficult. Absolutely. Completely agree with that piece. I just want to give props to the people who do live this way and the fact that they can say, yes, you can come in here, you can film us this way, you can portray us, we're going to give you this trust. And that trust is easier to give when you are unapologetic on how you live. And that is who Rhee's character was. She was like, yeah, you don't ask for what should be freely given.
Yes. And to your point, I think Ebert actually praised it for this, and it goes a step beyond what he was saying too. I mean, there is a lack of judgment as the film takes towards these people. Debra Granik is not condemning or descending to stereotypes in how she portrays these characters. There is a humanity to them. There is sadness, but it's not totally pity either. And it walks a very, very, very delicate line, which is why I said it's so real. It's not condemning or saying like we in the Hollywood world or the movie making world look down on these people and look how simple they are. It doesn't have a condescending tone, and nor does it have a pity tone. I mean, there's a sense of, I'm not going to go all the way documentary style, but I mean, there's a sense of authenticity that she achieved in portraying this world and what it feels like to live in it. And to someone like you said, it makes me very thankful for what I have. I think that's a big eye-opener for a lot of people who don't live in this world or aren't a stone's throw away from this world.
I think that if at any point in time during this movie that the people who allowed this to be filmed in and around them thought that there was a thumbing their nose at them, that this probably wouldn't have been made. I think it was because she stayed true to how she filmed this that they were like, yep, that's us.
Yeah, we didn't let them film Wrong Turn in West Virginia.
Right.
This is not that kind of movie though.
No, but I mean, he makes a pertinent point there that when you're trying to make fun of or make light of or thumb your nose at a culture, and that's what Wrong Turn really does, that's when it's like, no, that's not happening here. But if you're trying to make an honest film on how honest or dishonest people live, and in the end it's correct, they're not going to dissuade you or prevent you from portraying that because they're unapologetic for how they live.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to give her credit too for what you were saying earlier, Brian. It's a good slow burn. She has a great task of storytelling on this one. I was looking at the stuff that they cut out later, and there's a lot of fat that would have really slowed this down. The book has a lot of dialogue between Gale and Rhee, and there's even this tension between the two of them where I guess they had been romantically involved in the past, the two best friends, and there's some part of the reason why there's this contentious relationship between the husband and them. Again, you can't tell everything, and I don't really think that is at the core of what this is. There's another scene where she goes into a cave and makes a fire to just escape her world, and because she can't handle it all, and she smokes, a marijuana. And I'm sitting there going like, well, that kind of takes away at the strength of the character.
Oh, if I'm doing a best quotes of the podcast ever, going into a cave and smoking a marijuana would make my top 5.
I don't know what I was gonna say a doobie because they said a doobie in the movie, and then I was gonna say a joint, and then I just...
Here's a doobie for your walk home.
Yeah. Anyway.
I would like to smoke one marijuana, please.
Yeah. I would be horrible buying drugs. I'm so I'd like 3 cocaines and a marijuana, please.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's awesome. I'm in the same boat. Please, like, I want the audience to know that there's no judgment here because I'm in the same boat. I live in a legal state where marijuana terrifies me because they've been working on it like it's going to cure cancer, and I think that if I smoked it, I'd just lose my mind the first time and die. So please understand that the ignorance of drug use on here is fairly complete.
Yes, we did not do meth as part of our homework to understand this movie.
You guys didn't?
Oh, teach us. You gotten a taste yet?
That's the only way I'm awake at 10:51 at night.
They make coffee and soda.
I thought it was interesting, though, that as a director, she made a decision to not show the missing person, either in flashback or in anything beyond a photo album as a child. And you don't see Ree's dad at any point. And interesting choice. Normally you would have something like that. You would introduce the character beforehand and have like a, volume 0 to the movie before it begins. We never see Jessup, the dad. And I thought that was an interesting move. It made it haunting in a way. It made it very real. Like you felt like, wait, where is this person?
It's one less person you have to pay.
So I had a thought on this whole piece. Jessup is supposed to be the younger brother, correct?
I think so.
I think so.
Okay. So, do you guys remember DJ Qualls
Yeah.
from The New Guy?
Mm-hmm.
How much does he look like Hawks?
Huh. You're right.
Like the whole time I was thinking, okay, DJ could totally be the younger brother. He was born in 78, so Ree could totally be his kid. All this with I just like as a casting piece, and I agree with your statement that they shouldn't show him. But the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, could this guy not have been the younger brother?
Wow, that's I never would have gotten there. Thanks, man. I see it now, though.
Dude. No, on the rewatch, like this is something that was just dominating my thoughts to the point where I was picturing him as the dad.
It's kind of a fun image.
Now, Chad, you have often mentioned one of your trademark lines that you said, I don't like to be put through a movie, and I'm not going to enjoy that. Is this a movie that you felt like you were put through?
Yes. It's a good movie. It really is. But it's not the type of movie I seek out. It's not the type of movie that I'll revisit. A lot of this stuff, to Mary's point, Elk River was not Charleston, and Elk River is not any of the worst counties in West Virginia, but there were a lot of areas here where the phrase, "What are you doing on my property?" came up a lot. So, to that, I appreciated it for what it was, but yeah, it's not something I seek out.
I think I've said that exact phrase several times here in Washington. So
you're getting there. And you have a dog. That's a big part.
It's one of those things that I feel like comes with you regardless of where you lived. I feel like there's, even though I don't claim any sort of closeness to the story in terms of how this went down, I respect a whole lot of it. I think that's why this is, I'm not going to call this a super rewatchable movie. I don't think that's true. But if someone wanted to watch it, they were like, oh, I haven't seen Winter's Bone. I'd be like, oh, we're watching that tonight.
I really think you should see it twice. I would say that.
Yeah. And I own it. So this is something that I do watch. Is it something I'm eager to watch? Like, oh, God, I just really need to watch Winter's Bone right now? No. But when you brought it up for the podcast, I was like, yes, absolutely. So I have a lot of respect for the manner in which she imports herself in this movie, and that this sort of society exists, and there is a code of honor for them that exists, and I think that's what actually ends up getting her to the point where she is holding her dead father's hands while someone chainsaws them off. But if you look at the grit, first off, that took for a daughter to do to make sure that her younger siblings had a roof over their head. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, like, the women in this movie could kick my butt.
It's a tough world to be in for these women.
These are hard people, and they still find joy in life through small things like playing the banjo or whatever, and they're unapologetic, and I respect so many aspects of that life.
Yeah, and I want to give a lot of credit to, as we transition to like into that physical environment again, the details are what sings. From when I said you really should see this a second time, you can't fully appreciate that level of detail with one watch, I don't think, because what these characters are so believable is a large, to Debra Granik's direction credit. It's just how they move and what they have in their hands at the time, how, like, you know, Teardrop's just twirling a gun casually and like loading it in a very threatening manner. How the little wooden horse is this important connection for the girl, and how she likes horses. They have a horse. They have to give the horse away to the neighbors, and the pain that is clearly causing, and how cluttered and dirty the environment is. Everything is worn, and it's like the inside of the house doesn't feel like home. But I mean, this is what they have, and it's everything to them. And you know, there's nothing clean, and there's no safe place to go to necessarily. The most welcoming place is maybe a school with fluorescent lights and block walls. I mean, that level of detail is important, and they did show in the behind the scenes footage of the DVD. You know, they were staging things to, you know, position certain items that meant certain things. You know, when Ree goes and looks through the clothes and stuff like that of her dad's, you feel the pain that he's missing, and she's looking at that. So there's so much stuff that you can't quite pick up on that first time, and I want to really appreciate this movie just because it really lives in the details.
Yeah, when I was watching it, it's like, man, they really nailed the wardrobe. This is what people look like when you go out into the country. And it turns out most of it was at the actual residence of Forsyth, Missouri. It was their clothes, and they gave them to the cast members, and Debra Granik just offered in exchange of, we'll buy you new clothes. So these weren't some wardrobe or style. This was straight off the backs of the people that lived there.
Gosh, that's awesome. As a director, I mean, God, that's awesome. And furthermore, that's a really delicate way of handling that, again, of like, hey, I want to have the real thing. And instead of just patronizing people who live in that world, you know, that's a really nice thing that you've also done for them of like, hey, do you want an upgraded coat? I
would bet money that just in the tenor of this movie, I bet money that they didn't ask for new clothes.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that they didn't ask for it, but I'm sure that, you know, like just the offer, again, that line of like, don't ask to be given what should be offered. And I think there's still an honor part that's there.
It's a pride piece, and I totally get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's very true of that culture as well. They did capture that well as well. You know, I don't have much, but what I have is mine. I've earned it. And there's a lot of conveyed elements of this movie that this is a hard working world to be in. And we talk about why it's aggressive and unfriendly and I don't want to live in it, or uncomfortable. I mean, this is a hard working world. I mean, everybody's wearing dirty, torn clothes that are worn down, hand-me-downs. There's a sense of this life is a lot of work. You have to split the wood. You have to keep the house running in a way that, you know, most people throughout most of middle America this is almost like post-apocalyptic to them, but it's very, very real, and Ree has to do it. And that's one of the things Debra Granik spoke about in an interview. Ree has to actually do everything for real.
Yep. I kind of dug the mushrooms hanging from the pillars at the front of the house.
Oh yeah, that was a good touch.
Yeah. I feel like using that was almost like Bones, if that makes sense. Like it kind of looks like where you have other movies where you have like the hut with various bones scattered around the front or something like that, that the mushrooms actually kind of gave a we keep what we kill kind of piece to it.
I could have used some more wind chimes or dream catchers to reinforce the country.
Okay.
No, that's not a thing for you?
Chad wants to see the wind.
As far as dream catchers go, I feel like that is a specific piece that goes more to being able to afford a dalliance into other cultures, whereas this is really just brass tacks, log cabin. Like, we don't meddle in how other people live, and we don't expect anyone to meddle into how we live. And a lot of that goes into the even Teardrop's interaction with the police, where he's like,
That was a tense scene.
Yeah.
oh, God, I love it. It's just one of those things where it's like, do you really want to do this? And I really recommend, not because they carry the same weight, because this is a very weighty movie, but if you watch Justified in any amount, you'll totally see the law enforcement versus inclusionary, we don't talk to the law, like, piece that comes from this sort of culture.
Yep. Absolutely. And I liked how the Thump Milton character, he stood out from everybody just by simply how he dressed. Like, he kind of had this hierarchy as the gang member. I like that detail on him. Like, there was an ominous sense to this character, even though he says very little. He gets very, very, very little screen time, but you kind of tell that he's the big boss.
He had the most patches on his jacket. That's a man to be feared.
He's cleaner than everybody else. He's got a certain type of hat, and other people aren't wearing anything like that. He's dressed differently. I mean, it's just, ringleader. He just reeks of ringleader, and he was scary when he's like, "Do you have something to say? You better say it now." I'm just like, oh man, like that scene where she's in there, man. It's just his presence, very overwhelming. And there's a lot of scary people. Teardrop's scary, and he's the good guy. And I mean, little Arthur creeps me out, and that was before I knew about the part in the book that got cut. Soundtrack. This is a very stripped down, folksy, hollow soundtrack. Chad, what did you think about the music here?
I could have used a little bit more gospel and bluegrass in it. There was one point where there was death metal going on, and that kind of threw me off. They did have little inclusions. The opening had a little folksy tune, and there was a cut towards the middle that had a gospel song that was kind of nice. But as grungy as this world is, it's intertwined with that type of music, and I wanted to hear a little bit more, even if it was just sorrowful in the background.
Interesting. Brian, what did you think about the music?
I get that, Chad's piece on that, but at the same time, I think this is one of those movies where the void of sound needs to happen, like her walking through the woods, just trudging through the leaves, and that piece needs to be a silent thing, not accompanied by anything else. Now, like Missouri Waltz at the beginning of it, I really enjoy that song. I'm a huge fan of Americana music anyway, so the whole scene where she goes to visit the mistress, or the on again off again side girl, and they're all playing and singing, like, I like that. Like, from 10 years of 4-H camp, that's something that I enjoy, that reminds me of home. So I enjoy those pieces in this. Now, as far as the death metal scene, it is a stark contrast, because it's snapping you to this point she's dealt with mostly older, seasoned, and frankly beaten down members of their society. This guy's the husband of her past lover, and you could tell he's a dick. And was he messing with an ankle bracelet, like the like you can't leave the house kind? It was one of those things that I kept like pausing and rewinding to see.
I don't know. I thought he was just getting his shin guards on to go on a 4-wheeler.
It could be. It was one of those things where, like, when she was asking you to use the truck and whatnot, like, I kind of got the vibe that he wasn't allowed to leave the house, and that he was the hothead young person
Angry,
who thinks
yeah.
he's So totally understood the music for that piece, but by and large, in terms of, the culture that they're coming from, I thought the music played its part for the parts that was necessary.
I think they chose them really well for the tone of the movie, actually. I think what you're describing, Chad, is even in these perhaps dark worlds, there's bright music to be had and warmth through that. But I think what she's going for is, the film is shot at wintertime, and so everything's brown, gray. There's desaturated camera filters on this as well, where there's no bright blues, reds, or greens, and everything's very muddy. And there's a hollowness and a coldness that's conveyed in this winter setting. And they wanted you to have that. So this very, very empty, hollow banjo and the, solitary voices as opposed to more ensemble singing. I don't know. I felt like it was scary. And like I said, maybe it's because I was scared in this movie, but I think it fit the scary tone of what Debra Granik was shooting to make.
Yeah, as far as sound goes, I will throw in the use of dogs was really outstanding. Because when you go to someone's house in the country, every single house is just going to have 2 or 3 of these hounds that just go nuts against the screen door. And you heard that just about every location she had, the scratching, the howling, the barking. So that really, it reinforced, hey, we're out in the country, but it also added to the menace of it, of you shouldn't be on this property.
Yeah. You guys ready to hand some awards?
Let's do it.
Frye, why don't you start us off with your MVP?
I'm going to do this backwards. So just going to give you guys a heads up on this. So my MVP was John Hawkes as Teardrop. I don't think I would have enjoyed this movie nearly as much as the turnaround of her coming to him for help, him realizing that he should have done more, and then them becoming closer as a family based on her gumption.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you're going with Hawks there. He was great too. He totally deserved his Oscar nomination.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Chad, who's your MVP?
Going off reservation here, and Carrie Barden and Paul Schnee. They're the casting directors. And I think they just hit a home run. Almost every single character. These are people I know. They dressed and acted their parts to perfection. So kudos to the casting department.
Wow. I almost assumed that by the time it got to me, Jennifer Lawrence would have been picked. So I prepared to go another direction. But I mean, I genuinely want to give this to Debra Granik. I mean, I have to give a nod to Jennifer Lawrence because nobody said her. But I mean, she did an amazingly good job. But Debra Granik as a director here, I think it's a shame she didn't get that nomination for the Best Director. Didn't say she deserved to win it that year necessarily, but a nod would have been very good for her. So I thought her attention to detail and her ability to make this all come together in such a visceral, real way was impressive. So Debra Granik for me.
Very good.
Just so I can drive a nail in here, and I might get a little backlash on this, but given the constant insistence on Darren Aronofsky, I would have liked to have seen her win this.
Now, Best Supporting Actor, Bryan.
So I literally have a note next to supporting. I'm not saying this is supporting. It's Jennifer Lawrence. Like, she was my number 2, and we don't have Best Actor in accordance with MVP. So my MVP is John Hawkes. The main part of this was based on Jennifer Lawrence and her driving force in this movie. So I'm putting this under supporting because I don't have a category to put it under. So she is that piece.
Wow, you circumvented the system to make it happen, but Jennifer Lawrence needed to have some kind of take-home award from this show. So I'm going to allow it this time. So,
but I couldn't put Hawks as supporting because his presence was MVP worthy.
Agreed. That's a great choice.
I
know you're breaking the mold, but Chet, Best Supporting Actor.
I feel like Dale Dickey got snubbed. Mirab, she's intimidating, she's a force, and her performance was just marvelous.
I'm 100% with you. I actually felt like Dale Dickey deserved to have some attention thrown her way, so I'm actually going to cast a second vote for her, and I'd love John Hawkes in this, so he did a great job with the Oscar nomination. I felt like he got his dues, but Dale Dickey was scary. She was off-putting. She had quite a presence herself in this.
So she has a micro part, like it's a couple lines. It's in a movie called The Sentinel with Michael Douglas, and he comes to her door and he's looking for somebody, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't heard from him." As soon as he leaves, she picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, this guy came looking for you. This cop." Like that. Like I still remember that line verbatim because like she plays that part well. And you know, when I saw her in this, I was just like, it's cop.
So, who's your hidden gem, Bryan?
I really want to say that my hidden gem for this is the collection of townspeople or regular, you know, the people that actually live there that they use in this movie. Like, that was the gem of this movie. They use so many people that are real. Like, we've talked about it, we've harped on about it a lot during this podcast, about the realness, the gravity of this movie, and that was brought to you by all the people who aren't actors and actresses. They just carried on.
Great choice. What about you, Chad? Hidden gem.
Meredith Sisko. She's this country lady who's singing briefly, and it's one of those throwaway scenes where you might just forget it even happened, but it's one of the very musical portions, and her look was perfect for the movie, and she actually has an album. Like, that's what she does. So good on Meredith Sisko featuring the voice.
You're talking about the birthday party.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
Overweight lady with the mole. Yeah, she was great.
I'm going to go with the Cinnamon Schultz is her name. She plays Victoria. She's Teardrop's female companion. I'm not clear what their relationship status is, but I thought she did.
Wait, her real name is Cinnamon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Victoria is the movie name, but yes, Cinnamon Schultz is the actress's name, and I thought she did a great job. There was probably the only compassionate character other than a close friend in this who wanted to help her out, and I felt like she nailed her scene on that one. And then also I like how they also reel it back in with the even this family member who was trying to help you out. Here's some money, and I tried to help you out and do the right thing. By the way, have a doobie on the way home. So,
have a doobie on the way home.
Have one marijuana.
Have a single marijuana for your walk.
We got a marijuana for you.
I really need to keep that in now. So, recast, Bryan.
So, my recast is a little shameless here. I've been harping on David Harbour from Stranger Things as all sheriff-related things. So I'm going to recast David Harbour as Garret Dillahunt's character of Sheriff Baskin because I just love him in Law.
I like it.
I'm up for it, yeah.
I feel like he's scarier. I feel like that standoff would have maybe lasted a second longer where you think, oh, they're going to get down. I feel like Garret Dillahunt looked like the kind of guy that backs down, whereas if you have Harbour in there, you'd be like, oh, it's on. Guys, it's on. Guys, check this out. It's on. And then it's like, if he backs down, you're like, oh, I thought it was on.
In that scene, it was so tense. If I had been Rhea, I was like, I'm going to walk home. What? It's dark. I'm going to walk home. I don't like where this is going. No, but Chad, recast.
I'm going to duck when I say this, but Jennifer Lawrence.
You need to duck. We're throwing things at you.
Yeah, she won an Oscar, but her look just doesn't work for me. I'm recasting with someone of a similar age, actually just 1 year younger than she was.
Don't you say Natalie Portman.
Kelsey Ballerini. She's a country music singer from Tennessee, but she really pulls off the rural look, and I think she'd be a better fit.
Okay. We'll have to look that one up because I'm actually not familiar with that one, but bold pick. And my recast is going to go to the mother. This is total overcast for the part, but by the way, I liked all the acting in this, so My recast is going to be Valerie Richards, who plays Connie, the mother, and I'm going to overcast her with Laura Linney. Just like Laura Linney as an actress, and I think, her as this catatonic, zoned out, brain damaged mother. Great cast. Had a hard time doing this. Best shot, Bryan.
I really like the shot where Teardrop comes and hands the kids the chicks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't really get the import of this, but, like, if they're male, they end up being food. If they're female, they end up being, egg-bearing chickens. And it really is a magnanimous gift for a family that needs food.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great choice there, too. Chad, we mentioned this isn't a cinematically rich movie, but what was your favorite shot?
So this may not mean very much, but there's this ugly lawn ornament going down a slide at Mirab's house, and I've just seen these types of things all my life, and for me, it was just the perfect shot of, oh, of course that's there, and they focused in on it, and it was just a neat touch.
Okay. I'm going to go with the shooting at squirrels. When they were hunting, they used a nice perspective of looking back at them with the gun in their hand, so I thought that teaching moment of her teaching her siblings how to survive, as she does, that was my favorite shot. Best scene, Bryan.
My best scene is going to be her running after Thump at the cow show. The whole part of her trying to get his attention, and then the whole thing they did with the cow, the baby calf screaming. I thought that was really heavy. I really like that whole desperation piece. I'm trying to get your attention. It's probably what got her butt kicked later on. I'm sure he probably heard her and still ignored. But the cinematography of how they pan from her walking on the catwalk to running on the catwalk to yelling at him to the calf screaming. Like, I thought that whole composition was awesome.
That was a candidate for my best shot. I'm glad you mentioned that. Good choice, too, for best scene. Chad, what's your best scene?
The chainsaw scene.
Oh.
It's traumatic. It's well acted, and it's my second favorite scene where someone chainsaws a hand off.
Second favorite scene.
Evil Dead.
Okay.
Solid.
Now, my best scene is going to be when Teardrop comes to save Ree. When that garage door is going up, I wasn't sure if that was her dad that she's been looking for this whole time. I wasn't sure who was behind there. Couldn't be good, I thought. And then an unlikely hero. And that, to me, is a moment of, like, you're in a bad spot when you're like, oh, good, Uncle Teardrop's here.
Well, she said herself, she was like, I've been afraid of you for, my whole life. And, he had a quote that was somewhere along the lines of, you're as hard as you have to be.
Save that. I'll be following that up there. So,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Change one thing, Bryan.
I would have liked a little bit more background and context for the drug ring, like the extended family that was running this. I liked the character of Thump and the fairly little we really got out of that. But maybe a little bit more of the prominence or even the hierarchy where it came, because you kind of see her swimming upstream, talking to this person and that person, and eventually getting to the guy who's, the king of the holler. And I guess I would have liked to have seen maybe a background scene of law enforcement or something saying, all right, this is top dog, and, a little bit more of the family tree, as it were.
Okay. Yeah. Expand into that and understand what's going on there. I think there's a reason we don't know, though, too, at the same time. She does not care. She just wants what she wants, and she's not going to talk. And that's somewhat emblematic where we don't get that whole thing sealed up. She's like, you mind your own business.
Right.
But I do find myself being curious about the same thing, Bryan. Chad, what is your change one thing?
I don't want to lean into the stereotype too much because it's important what they've done here. But honestly, for a bunch of meth addicts and tweakers, they had great teeth. And that really needed some work.
Nope, that's a nice, nice suggestion there. And
that's why I thought it was cocaine.
My change one thing is going to be, I would like, this is a story element, so this is probably a book issue, but I'd like a piece of misdirection. Everything's very straightforward in this one. Ree goes from place to place. She's too smart to be fooled into a burned down house that has weeds coming up out of it. She's too smart to know when that's not it, and she's always on the path. I think it would add a layer of interest if she had a piece of wrong information that she then had to discard, or something that was sending her in one direction where she feels like she has to pursue this person. She suspects this person can help her, and then in the end it doesn't, or something. So it's that piece of mystery that we were talking about earlier, Chad, of my expectation of this being a mystery. Just one single element in the plot that sends you in the wrong direction, that keeps you wondering what's right here. I think that would really improve this movie.
That's fair.
I think I liked her single-minded directedness, that if your dad is a meth cooker, and she clearly knew a lot about it, like, he doesn't blow up labs. Like, he's better than all these things. If he died, it's because you all chose to kill him. I think her single-mindedness on this, and her ability to be like, yes, this is what happens. I know what happened, and I'm demanding an answer, is part of her base gumption, and why I think she's probably, I think at some point they realize, like, this is not a member of the family to disrespect. I think that if there were a Winter's Bone 2, this would be more like, this is, I would think that the extended part of the family that's running this would be like, this is someone we need to entrust with things, not simply keep out.
And what is your best quote, Brian?
I really liked, it's great to have balls, kid. Make sure they don't get you hurt.
All right. Good advice. And Chad.
Here's a menacing line from Teardrop. I already told you once with my mouth.
Oh, yeah, that was, yeah. This is not a fun world to live in for a woman.
Can I double down on that?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite Teardrop line was, is this going to be our time? Oh, God, when he said that, I was like, dude, you can see in the rear view he's got like an M14. It's like, I understand that you have the angle on him, but dude, he's ready to throw down with like a rifle on you.
And he's crazy.
What an awesome piece.
Just the menace without really, I mean, they could have dialogue-wise gone, do I need to tell you with my fist or anything like that? They didn't. Just the menace behind everything he says is a credit.
Tasteful direction. You know it's there, but you don't show it. You don't have to bring that ugliness onto the screen. I'm with you, Chad. That line says a lot.
But even if you look at Jennifer Lawrence, like when they've hit her and beat her up and dropped her, like, what are we going to do with you, girl? And she's like, well, I guess kill me. Like, there's death is a plausible option here. It's not like...
The next line was, that was already discussed.
Yeah, and she goes, then help me? Has that been discussed? Like, that's the kind of thing, it's like, this whole family's at this point where it's like, look, you can't hurt us anymore. So we're either going to throw down or you're going to back us up. Those are the options.
So my best quote is very much in line with what you guys are getting at here. And it is when Reed tells Teardrop, you've always scared me, Teardrop. And he says, that's because you're smart.
Yeah.
And yeah, he is scary.
He was phenomenal in this movie. Just phenomenal.
We've come full circle, and we're going to rate this movie on a 5-star scale with half-star intervals. Brian, what would you rate Winter's Bone?
I'm going to give this one of my few and far between 5 stars.
5-star. Wow. Well done. Chad, are you going to go with a 5-star as well?
I'm going to give it a 3-star and duck again. It's really well done, but it doesn't particularly make it enjoyable for me. They're great performances, but I kind of felt like I was following a Jehovah's Witness in a really messed up neighborhood for half the movie. And it just had a really unsatisfying conclusion for me.
Okay. Well, you didn't like the happy ending. She gets the money. She holds her family together.
I mean, there's a banjo concert on the front porch. Yeah, that's a happy ending. But
oh, you mean literally the outro is man, I want to talk about that, but we got to close. So I'm going to go with a 4-star. I'm going to play it right down the middle between you guys and bring everybody together here. So I'm going to go with 4 stars on this one. And I think perhaps some of my expectation of mystery is what's keeping me out of this. And like to Chad's point, this is not a fun world to live in, much less visit. So it's not, like you said, Brian, this is not a, hey guys, let's get together on a Friday night and pop some popcorn and put 7 of us around and watch Winter's Bone. This is an experience.
Have you tried meth?
Yeah. Yes. So this podcast was brought to you by meth.
Is this a 5 o'clock free meth giveaway? I heard it was free meth.
Chad, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
I would love to.
Steps back slowly.
Option number 1, Hollywoodland. From 2006, a detective examines the mysterious death of George Reeves, the star of the television series Adventures of Superman from 1952. Option 2, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from 2005. A murder mystery brings together a private eye, a struggling actress, a thief masquerading as an actor, all coming together. Option number 3, Harper from 1966. Lou Harper, a cool private investigator, is hired by a wealthy California matron to locate her kidnapped husband.
I haven't seen any of these, so let's go with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Bang bang. Kiss kiss. All right, that's what it'll be. Looking forward to that one. And thank you guys for doing the show.
Cheers, man.
Remember, all the Lords, Ladies, and Knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, we want to invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Those ratings help us make the show better, and they help proliferate and spread the show to other people. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com if you want to talk to us in depth or if you want to be on the show. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Brian?
Not without Bryan, man. Get Wesley Pipes.